All right, welcome everybody to It's Personal, Getting on Track with Personal Projects. Matt Stamey is going to be presenting. One of the benefits we started to decide who was going to introduce people, and I chose that I want to introduce Matt because Matt is a fellow community college photographer and like me, and he's really good. So I'm like, I got to hang around with this guy. Anyway, Matt's a photographer at Santa Fe College in Gainesville, Florida. After graduating from Kansas State, he shot for newspapers in Kansas, Louisiana, and Florida before making the switch to higher education in 2016. He also works part-time with the Florida Track Club as director of operations. And if he's not taking photos, he's probably out for a run or hanging out in the woods with his dog. So let's have a round of applause for Matt Stamey.
Well, hi, thank you, Glenn. Is it loud? Hear me? Good? Cool. Getting introduced, has anybody ever been introduced before? It's kind of like when people sing you happy birthday. It's nice, but you're like, come on, let's, thanks, yeah, finish this up. But no, I am super duper honored to be here. This is quite an honor for me. But I got to admit, I'm also a little intimidated because I give speeches and I'm a teacher as well. So I teach like high school and college kids. So to be up here speaking to my colleagues like I know something is kind of intimidating. So thank you guys for being here. This is really cool for me. I've been to many workshops over my career. Any former newspaper folks in here? Yeah, same. So I used to go to the MPPA flying short courses, Atlanta photojournalism seminar, mountain workshop, and then these symposiums. I've been coming to these since 2018. And there's always, you take home a lot of little nuggets of information, right? Like you go to these breakouts, you go to these keynotes, and you're just taking notes, and you take home little nuggets. And one common nugget of information that I always took home from all these workshops was shoot for yourself. Find something that you want to photograph and shoot for yourself. Find a project that your boss didn't tell you to do. Like this isn't an editor assigned thing; it's yours. And so I'd always take that home and be like, yeah, I'm going to find my own project. And so this is one of the first ones I did. This was when I was in college. I'm friends with some farmers, a husband and wife team, and the wife does horseback riding lessons. The husband farms the land and raises cattle, and they have 3 young daughters at the time. And so I found this, and my editor didn't tell me to go do this. I was just this is a cool story. I want to tell this story, right? And so I went out to the farm for a couple weeks and was photographing it. Got a little 8-year-old driving the farm truck and making dinner and just doing farm things. And I thought, man, I got a great story here. Really proud of my personal project, and I thought it was cool. And so at the end of the year, do you guys ever enter those contests? We have them here at UPAA, and in newspaper world, it's CPOI or POI, POII. I'd enter all those, all proud of my work at the end of the year, and and then you'd watch the judging, and you'd be the good stories and photos would be coming through, then yours would pop up and out, and then that didn't work. And so then, at the end of the contest, you'd look and see what won. You're like, okay, what story was the winner? What photo was the winner? And you'd look and see that, and you're like, well, of course. I can't, my 4-H kids can't compete with a cancer kid, right? Like, this is an incredible story. Renee, Byer at Sacramento Bee told this beautiful story. And so my little chicken raising 4-H kids can't compete with this. And so I'd always joke, and I don't mean any disrespect by this, but I always joke like, I need to find my cancer kid story. I need to find the cancer kid story. And what I mean by that is that story that's impactful and meaningful and can live on and influence. And so that's what I was looking for. I was like, I got to find that cancer kid story, right? So let's fast forward to October of 2022. This is me in my ridiculous running outfit, finishing the Chicago Marathon in 26.2 miles. I ran it in 3 hours and 37 minutes that's 8:12 per mile. And I'm not saying this to brag. It's a reference point for the rest of the speech, so I'm just throwing that up there. But yeah, so I finished the marathon. And for me, I'm not a professional runner. I'm just a hobby. I like to run. And for me to run a marathon in this time was like mind-blowing. I had no idea I could do this, and I did it. And peak of my physical abilities right here was finishing this marathon in 2022. But a few weeks after this, like I was walking into my office, I park, like we all do, park in the parking lot and have to walk to your office, and I got out of breath, and I was like, this is weird. And around Halloween, I really started like, I shouldn't be this sore and achy still. I shouldn't be breathing this hard just trying to walk to my office. And so I went to the doctor. The doctor's like, oh yeah, middle-aged man, out of breath, it's common, you know. But let's do some blood tests, let's do some tests. And so they ran some tests, and yeah, the test results came back, and yeah, so not the test results you wanted to get. It wasn't just like, hey, start to eat right. It was this. And so my doctor called me up when these test results came back, and he's like, yeah, hey Matt, I just want to let you know, like the test results showed that you probably have lymphoma. And I kind of sat there and I was like, what's that? I had no idea what lymphoma was. And so, yeah, so he's like, come back later this afternoon, like let's talk in person. I'll tell you what you need to do, next steps, what you need to do after being told you have cancer, what's next, And so I kind of hung up the phone and I sat there just like, what? Like, didn't really react. I didn't really have a reaction. I just sat in my chair for, I don't even know how long, just longer than I probably should have. Just sat there, brain's churning, all sorts of things. But one of the main things that popped into my head was like, wait a minute. I'm going to be the cancer kid. I've now got this ultimate personal project, right? This is the personal project of all personal projects. I'm going to document me going through this journey, and I kind of got a little excited about it, and I was like, this is it. This is my personal project. So I went to that appointment that afternoon, and started shooting. Like that's all I knew how to do. This is me being the doctor's telling me, you're gonna have surgery here. You're gonna have to do this. This is probably what's gonna happen. Make this appointment, these medicines, blah 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 blah, all that stuff. And it's stressful, obviously. I mean, that's a pretty honest representation of how I was feeling. So in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm capturing myself. And but I was excited because I had all the access in the world. Like I was the subject, right? I didn't have to call the doctors to get permission to go in here because it was me. I could go into the bathroom. I could go into my bedroom. I could go to the appointments, no problem. So I was actually kind of excited about that, given all the other, the weight of everything else that was on top of me. So I started doing it. A few days later, I had to have surgery. They had to remove a lymph node from my neck to biopsy it, to officially diagnose me, although it was pretty obvious at the time. So I was like, here, here's a little detail shot, right? The little wristband. I'm waiting. This is the waiting room for surgery. Yeah, and I was just like, okay, here we go. I'm doing this project. I'm going to tell this story like a newspaper, and trying to use that Renee story as my inspiration. And my good friend at the time, my best friend, she was helping me out a lot, and my lungs were filling up with fluid, and I had a lot of trouble breathing, and so I had to do these stupid breathing exercises that were not fun. But you can see the surgery scar and everything. But so I opened up my bedroom window and I moved around to the other side so I could have the nice light hitting me. And I was like, here, gave her my phone. I said, here, take my picture, because this is part of the journey, right? This is part of the steps that I'm having to do. So I'm like, I'm documenting me. Here we go. A few days later, I had some other complications. I had, of all things, a kidney stone attack, of course, and that put me in the hospital. And then they had to put my port in. So I was in the hospital for like 4 days. And I knew when I got there and I got admitted, I was like, this is part. I have to tell this part. This is an important piece. This is an important chapter of the story that I'm trying to tell. So, but my brain was like filled with so much other things that I got there and I was like, do I bring my camera? Like I packed a go bag, change of clothes, toiletries. But do I bring my camera? What do I? Oh. And it was, and this is what I shot, like a selfie, thumbs up selfie. And I was like, that's more for my mom to see than it was for the story. But I was like, oh, this is what I got in me now. So. But it was kind of a struggle to figure out how I wanted to tell this story. Another milestone, a big part of the cancer part was the unknowns. There were a lot of unknowns at the time, and so having these tests done were giving me answers. And so this is a bone marrow bone marrow sample. It's not a colonoscopy like my friend said. It's a bone marrow sample. I would not advise getting one of those. They hurt. But it was giving me answers. So I was excited to get some answers. So that my mom was in town at that point, and so I was like, "Here, Mom, take some pictures of me doing this." She got some video too, but the nurse was singing the entire time, which is incredible. But yeah, so like I knew this was just part of the story I wanted to tell. Another big step of the story, big chapter, was my first day of chemo. This was probably the lowest of the lows, the sickest of the sick. But I knew I needed to document it, and I wanted to get some pictures of me getting chemo. My friend who helped me out a lot, she worked in the medical field, and she's retired, and she's maybe 100 pounds, like this little tiny woman, and she ended up having to help carry me into the hospital, like not physically carry, but I couldn't walk, so I had my arms around her, and so just to give you an idea of how weak I was. But again, I knew this, like the newspaper guy in my brain was like, day one of chemo, that's important. How the hell do I photograph it? I don't know, and I wasn't storytelling. I was just like, it's another selfie, right? It's another selfie, and they're putting the nurse has to wear a hazmat suit, and like, because if it gets on her, it'll like hurt her, and I'm like, you're putting that in me? That's crazy. But I knew it was a big part of the story. There was a lot of body changes. I got sickness does that to you, man. And so I knew I wanted to document my body and how it was changing, because I was looking different. I was bloated. My pants didn't fit. They're just crazy things. And so I did a mirror selfie, and I despise mirror selfies. I'm like, come on, I can do better than this. But how else do I do it? I don't know. So I was starting to struggle with the idea of this project, and but I kept doing whatever I could. Again, it's a cell phone mirror selfie. Like, but I'm not an influencer. You know, I'm not like a college kid and influencer. I'm just me. And so I started to try to create things that I knew I could photograph, right? And one of the only things I could control at this time was my hair. I knew I was going to lose it, and I just had my first round of chemo, and I saw the hair started to fall out, so I was like, let's shave it. I don't care. So I had a party. New Year's Eve, I invited some friends over. That's one of my good friends. He brought his clippers over. We watched a bowl game. K-State got slaughtered by Alabama, but it was fun to watch. And we shaved my head because it was fun. But again, it's another selfie, and it was starting to feel forced. I mean, I so vividly remember this moment because I was like I want to enjoy the moment of shaving my head with my friends, but I also need to document it. And so how do I? And it was just feeling forced. I know you guys have done projects where it feels forced. So, like in my intro, I do a lot of work with the Florida Track Club. Oh, thank you. I do a lot of work with the Florida Track Club, and I photograph all the races and help organize everything. And on January 1st every year, we have a race. It's called the Frank Shorter Mile, and have a bunch of, I don't know, it's a race. So I was photographing. I was still too weak to stand up to photograph it. You know, when you photograph, you kind of like change angles and get on your knees. I couldn't do that. So I just plopped myself down on the side of the track. I was still self-conscious of my hair, so I wore a hat that day. But yeah, I just started photographing the race. And the friend that had to carry me into the hospital helped me into the hospital for chemo. I asked her, I was like, hey, can you take a picture of me? Because I want to show that I'm still working while going through chemo. I'm still taking pictures while going through chemo. And she looked at me and she's like, Matt, your job is to beat cancer. That's your work now. Your work isn't to photograph things. Your work isn't to document you. Your work should be to beat cancer. And like literally in this moment, I'm photographing the race and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, she's right. Like, photographing myself isn't beating cancer. Work is work. It was adding stress. And to me, work is what you do for a boss, right? Work is what your editor tells you to do. And like I said, this project, this greatest personal project of the cancer kid, wasn't helping me beat cancer. And one of the things she told me was, like, everything you do, think, is this going to help me beat cancer? And if the answer is no, don't do it. And this project, it was stressing me out. And the last thing you need to do while battling cancer is be stressed. You need to be as relaxed and simple as possible. And so at the end of this race, I was helping clean up as much as I could. And I went to my friend who was shaving my head. And his name is Enoch. And I was like, Enoch, do you think I can run a mile? And he's like, hell yeah, you can. I'm like, you saw me just sit on the edge of the track all day. He's like, Stamey, let's get you running this mile. And so I just wanted to see if I could do it. I just wanted to see what I had in me. And so my friends gathered around, and this is me finishing. I thought there was some audio, but maybe not. So that's me finishing 4 laps around the track, not easily. So I did 1 mile, and it took me 16 minutes. It was kind of a run, walk, whatever. So you can kind of see I went from running a marathon a few months earlier to barely being able to do a mile. And that's my mom there. You can see she's holding me up because I could barely stand at that time. But in this moment, right here, I love this picture so much because friends, family. That's Deborah in the green right there. She's the one, that little tiny lady that held me up. Anyway, I felt more alive in this moment than I had in months. I felt energized. I felt excited. And I just felt alive. And so I knew then I needed to move. And my coach over there on the far right, Enoch, he challenged me right after this. He challenged me. He's like, Stamey, I'm going to challenge you to somehow move every day for 1 mile. Run, walk, swim, bike, paddleboard, however you can move. Just go out every day for at least 1 mile and move. I was like, I can do that. I just did a mile trying to run. I can walk. I knew I could walk for a little bit. And so the next morning, January 2nd, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning because I was on a ridiculous amount of prednisone. If you've ever been on prednisone, you don't sleep. It's a steroid, and they gave me a ridiculous amount of it. It was amazing, but I couldn't sleep. So I woke up at like 4:30, and I was like, you know what? I got to do my mile. Let me get out there and walk my mile. So this is my neighborhood, just walking through my streets, and I walk under a street light, and I was like, look at my head. That's kind of cool. I've never seen my silhouette like that. I've never shaved my head. And so I had my cell phone on me. I was like, click, neat. And then I started walking home, and it clicked in that moment. I was like, what if I took a picture every time I went out to do my mile? What if I'm going to be moving around anyway. I'm going to do this challenge of walking or running or biking a mile every day. What if I just took a quick picture of something that caught my eye? Just, oh, that's cool, whatever. What if I did that every time? And let's see what happens. So why not take a photo every time I'm doing this mile? So that's what I started doing. I was doing what I needed to do to beat cancer, and that was move. The movement and doing that mile, it decreased the swelling. My legs were all puffy and swollen, and getting my blood flowing helped that. What else was I going to say about that? Oh, when you're on chemo and prednisone, and like you're on chemo, and then they give you drugs to counteract the chemo, which give you other side effects. It's bonkers what your body goes through. And sweating and moving and increasing my heart rate just a little bit took that like chemical taste and feel out of my, it helped. So I needed to do that to beat cancer, and I was just taking a photo while I was doing that anyway. So this new project, it wasn't work. It was fun. It was joy. It was what I was doing with my time anyway. And so the real work was beating cancer, right? The real work was keeping my appointments scheduled and making them on time. It was making sure I took my medication on time, and it was moving. That was my work. Taking pictures along the way was joy. So cancer stripped me down. It took away my strength, as you guys saw. It took away a lot of my pride. It took away my ego. I didn't care what my hair looked like. I don't know. Before I had cancer, I remember thinking, man, shaving, losing your hair, that sucks. That's got to be the worst part of cancer. That's the least of my concerns. Absolute least of my concerns was my hair. And I'm really self-conscious of my hair. I wore hats for years. Anyway, but it stripped away my ego. I didn't care anything. I was just doing what I needed to do to survive, literally. So, yeah. So with no ego, with no agenda other than to get healthy, I didn't care what the photos looked like. I didn't care if they were consistent. I didn't care if they told a story. I didn't care about likes or shares. I threw them out on social every now and then, but whatever. I didn't care what response I got because this was for me. This was part of keeping my brain alive while battling this disease. And so I just made photos of whatever caught my eye. And somebody went around campus pinning mustaches all over, and I thought that was kind of funny, so I took a picture of it. So I wanted to share some tips and tricks that I picked up and learned through this process. So you guys don't have to go through life-changing illness to come up with this with a project. And like I said earlier, step one is let go of your ego. Just doesn't matter. Like I know it's easier said than done, but do it for yourself. It's a personal project. I can't tell you what it is. I can't tell you how to do it. It's a personal project. And that's what I was told at all those conferences that I went to. Is like, fine, do it for yourself. Let go of your ego. And so that's step one. But let's go deeper. Let's dive a little bit deeper into this project and see, let's peel some layers. And so you guys, like I said, don't have to go through a major illness. Have you guys heard those cheesy quotes of like one day or day one? Or a year from now, you'll wish you have started today. They're cheesy, but man, are they true. Like, they ring true. And so, just start. Just start. There's not going to be a good time, a better time, a right time. Just start. Have you ever had to have like a hard, difficult conversation with a partner or boss? There's no right time to have it. You just need to have it, right? And you usually feel better after you've had it. So, just start. I know I've already shown this photo, but I love it. So, anyway, the only part that felt like work for me was organizing the files on my phone. These are all cell phone photos. So the only work of it was keeping it organized a little bit. And how I did that was on the iPhone. You can put a little heart on it, and it goes into your favorites folder. So that's what I did. Because I was taking a bunch of pictures of other things, and I didn't want the photos for this project to be lost in my camera roll of millions of photos. So I just put a heart. That way it was at least separate a little bit. And so then at the end of my walk, or at the end of my run, or at the end of the day before bed or something, I would pull up that photo, which is easy to find because it was in my favorites, and I'd crop it and tone it just a little bit, like all natively on the phone. Like I didn't use like Lightroom Mobile or anything. It was just whatever the iPhone editing feature is. I just did a little bit on there. And then I created a separate folder called Scene on My Mile, and you can click it and go add to this folder. So that way all these pictures were cropped, toned, and put in a folder. And so maybe 2 minutes of work, if that. And so that's all I did, is just keep them separate from the rest of the masses of pictures that I was taking on my phone. So I'm going to get into some running things and photo things. It's going to merge here a little bit. But there are two types of goals that I live by. There's telic goals and atelic goals. Telic goals are, if you don't know, are goals with an endpoint. So I'm going to run and train to qualify for the Boston Marathon. So you work, you have a goal, you reach it, that's done. I'm going to photograph a project so I can have a book. I'm going to photograph the story so it can go on my school's exposure page. You work, goal, done. And those are great. You need those goals. Another type of goal is an atelic goal. And those are goals without an endpoint. I'm going to run and train to live a healthier lifestyle and live longer. There's no endpoint to that. I'm going to photograph a personal project so I can keep my creative brain churning and open my mind to new ideas. There's no endpoint. And so for a personal project, if you're curious and wanting to start one and want to do one, I would strongly suggest not having an endpoint to it. Just, like I said, just start and make it an atelic goal where you're just shooting to keep your gears turning. For this thing, I wasn't shooting to post on Instagram. I wasn't thinking of a website. I was just shooting. And make it part of something you do already. Like I said, I was doing these miles every day. I needed to do them to battle this thing, and so make it not something that's you just add to your to-do list, because he mentioned that last night with your to-do list and to-don't list. I thought that was brilliant. But don't make your personal project just another to-do list item, because then it becomes work. So add it into something you already do. I don't live in a big city. I live in Gainesville, Florida. But if I did, and I've been to Chicago, New York, and I've ridden the trains to and from downtown, I've always thought, man, if I had a 45-minute commute on a train, what a great time to do a project. Because like, you're going to be riding the train anyway. Why not take some pictures while you're doing that? And I always thought that was it's not going to convince me to move to a big city, but if I did, I would definitely do that. But do you have to walk to your office? Do you have like a 15-minute walk from your car to your office? Do you walk past like a sculpture or a mural or a tree? I don't know, take pictures of it. If you're going to walk by it every day, why not? Just make it part of your routine. Dog walks, if you have a dog, I always say that because I have a dog and we go out a lot. Do you have kids? Kids are great personal projects. I don't have any, but any of my, whenever my friends have kids that are photographers, I'm always like, you just now have a lifetime personal project. And I'm kind of jealous of it. But I'm Uncle Matt, so my nieces and nephews get photographed all the time. Anybody familiar with the Michael Scott KISS method? Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid. He talked about that yesterday. Just keep it simple. It doesn't need to be a big, grand cancer kid journey. Just keep it simple. Somehow I manage by Michael Scott. Some days are shitty. Get it? It's a toilet. But some days aren't going to be good. But be consistent and just keep showing up. Some days you might feel it. Some days, like it's going to be the greatest day of photography. You're going to wake up and have all the energy in the world, and other days you're just not. Both days are fine. Both days are great. But some days you're going to have it. Some days you're not. Some days it's just going to be peanut shells on the ground. That's it. It's peanut shells on the ground. But keep coming back. Keep coming back to it, and because what you want to be doing is building momentum. And just by showing up every day, you're building momentum. It doesn't have to be every day. This was an everyday thing for me, but if you just keep coming back to it, whether you produce something great, whether you're just Googling something, if you just keep showing up for it, it's going to build momentum and you're going to find something great. The reference he made last night was it might just be a drop in the bucket, but it's a drop in the bucket, right? Sometimes the faucet's going to pour into that bucket. Sometimes you're just going to drop it. I think you get what I'm talking about. And this one's tough. It's tough for me, but don't judge yourself on the good days or bad days, or if you miss days. Just keep coming back. As a runner, I run most every day, and some days I get out and I can do 10 miles, and I feel like my feet don't even hit the ground. I don't break a sweat. I'm not out of breath, and I finish 10 miles, and I'm like, start my day. And then there's other days where I go out for a mile, and I'm like, nope. And I walk home. Both days are fine. I showed up both days. I put my running shoes on both of those days. I went out the door both of those days. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. So if you start a project, if you're turning your ideas for a project, that project is worthy because it exists. You're worthy because you exist. Not because of the quality of the photos, not because of how many you made or who sees them. It's worthy because you started it. And be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself and trust your gut. More specifically, trust your photo gut. As a photographer, as photographers, I know you know that feeling when you're feeling the vibe of an assignment. You can you walk in somewhere and you're like, oh look, perfect light. Oh look, beautiful moment. Oh look, kids in rainbows. Oh my gosh, and it's just like the photos are just flowing in, right? And then the other days you walk into an assignment, you start working on a story, and you're like, oh, everybody's just sitting around. And you're struggling to find that image. You're struggling to find that story to tell. Recognize that. Like, recognize when you're struggling with a project. Recognize when it's flowing, like Niagara Falls. And if you're struggling with it, listen to that, trust it, and either shift perspective, stop completely, change something new. Because remember, it's this personal project. You're not shooting for anybody. You're shooting for you. So if it's not working out, who cares? Stop and do a new one. Find something different. or like I said, like Rod Marr said, show up with a different lens. Show up, maybe only use your iPhone. Maybe only use wide angle. Maybe only shoot at f/22. I don't know. Just doesn't matter because it's a personal project. And lastly, trust that it'll lead to something great. Trust that it'll lead to something great. You might not even know what that is yet. Because remember, this is an atelic goal. You don't know if or what or where the end point is, but you've got to trust that process. You've got to trust the journey that showing up will lead to something great, and trust that the practice of showing up every day will open your mind to new ideas. Have you ever been in the shower and had like a brilliant idea come to you? Yeah? Have you ever, like while you're mowing the lawn, be like, oh, that'd be a brilliant portrait idea, or I should use my lighting like this. Do you know why that is? It's like those mindless tasks of showering or mowing lawns, they'll spark ideas. That's your brain taking a break. That's your brain relaxing and opening up to ideas. And more, to get into like the yoga side of things, you're present. You're present in the moment. When you're in the shower, you're just showering. And so your brain relaxes to just the shower, which opens you up to new ideas. When you're mowing the lawn, you're present just mowing the lawn, and so your brain shuts down and opens it up to ideas. It's kind of counterintuitive, and I don't want to get too deep into it. But as a marathoner and as a runner, I have a schedule of runs. Like Saturdays are my long runs, Mondays are my speed workouts, Wednesdays are my workouts, my lifting. And so I have all these schedules, but the most important day of my training schedule are Sundays, because those are rest days. Like, I don't do anything. I sleep in. I don't, maybe take my dog for a walk, but I just rest. And I need that rest day in order to have any sort of energy and rejuvenation to go back out and run. And your brain's the same way. And so this might be a, I don't know, wild idea, but what if you made your photo project your mindless task? I don't know if that's possible. But anyway, I thought that was a fun thought. Like, what if your photo project was your mindless task to help you open up to new ideas? Just a thought. So on the April 30th was the end of my chemo cycle. I'd gone through six cycles of chemo. So every 3 weeks I had to go get chemo, and there was processes that happened after each. The first week was prednisone week, and the second week was whatever. And so April 30th was the end of that third week after my sixth round. And I took my dog for a hike in the woods, like we do quite a bit. And I started walking back to my car, and I was like, oh, crap, I gotta find a photo, don't I? I guess I'll just put up a tree. And like, I realized then that finding a photo with each walk started to become a chore. It started to become a nuisance. So that's when I'm like, you know what, done. That's that photo gut. That's that trust yourself and know when it's done. The joy of finding a photo at every walk had kind of gone away because it had become a chore. So I called it quits. So 120 total images from this little personal project. From January 1st to April 30th was this Scene on My Mile project, right? So I turned my focus after that project to running the Chicago Marathon again. So it was a personal running project, not a personal photo project, because I didn't want cancer to dominate, and I wanted to F cancer. I just wanted to beat it. And so I started training after that picture. I started training and running again so I could finish the Chicago Marathon. And so this isn't a brag. Okay, what it kind of is, I guess, but it is a little. I'm proud of this, so I'm bragging. But I ran the Chicago Marathon a year later, and on October 8th. After I had my 6-month scan and it showed no signs of cancer. So yeah, I ran the Chicago Marathon. But the reason I showed this was, to me, it was a lesson and motivation that in just a few weeks, like in just a few weeks of showing up, you can change your direction. You can change your way of thinking. You can change how you view things. You can change your life in just a few weeks of showing up. Just that consistency, that drop in the bucket, just showing up. and dedicating just a little bit of effort, you can change your photography, you can change your health, you can change your fitness, you can change your relationships by just showing up and making an effort. That's a long way of saying you can do hard things. You can do hard things. So I got sick, I started a project, it didn't work out, I did another project, that was kind of fun, and then I trained and I ran a marathon, now what? Now, why did I do that? What was that for? What did I learn? What do I do? Was that whole journey just to finish the Chicago Marathon again? Kind of, but that was that telic goal, right? Like I wanted to finish the Chicago Marathon again, so I did it. But why? What was the point? Was it just to improve my physical being? Was it just to celebrate at the finish line? I don't know. But going through all that, after I finished this, I kind of sat back for a while. I didn't really photograph much and thought about it. And realized I told my story through all that. And I wanted to tell other people's stories. It was, I did what I set out to do. And so now I wanted to see how other people have used movement to get through hard times in their life. Cancer gives you a unique perspective on life. When you can't stand up long enough to cook a meal, when you're out of breath from a shower, and then you go through all this BS that you have to go through to beat it, like your whole perception of life changes. And we all have struggles, right? We all have a story. You hear that all the time. Everybody has a story. So we've all had to go through things, whether it's a sickness, whether it's a divorce, or a loss in the family, or a job change, or a move, or we're all going through things. And so I wanted to tell stories of how people are using different forms of movement to get through their hard times in life. And this is my good friend's wife. Her name's Pilar. She lives in Gainesville, and she's a breast cancer survivor. She battled cancer about a year before I did, and she walked her dog and jogged with her dog in the park, Lob Lolly for you Gainesville folks, every day while going through chemo. That's Herbie. So I wanted to tell her story. I think that's cool that she did this. She was an avid swimmer before cancer, and she wasn't able to swim during chemo. And so as soon as she got healthy enough to do that, now she swims like 3 times a week. So she also went to the UF Salsa Club dancing in downtown. She's from Columbia, so she loves to salsa dance. And she told me, she's like, it was fun dancing with them college boys. It made me smile. And so I went and hung out with her for a Thursday night downtown. So this story, what I'm showing you now is very much an ongoing project. I don't know where it's going. I'm open to ideas. I'm open to help. If you want any website builders out there. I don't know what I'm doing with it. I just know I need to do it. I just know I need to tell other people's stories, because I think it can be a reference point, right? I think people can use these stories. Think of it in a doctor's office. If you go and you're sick and you read this and you're like, oh, this person rock climbs while going through chemo. This person gardens. Well, I'm just making things up, but I think it can be a really helpful thing. So this is my coach, Enoch, the dude that shaved my head. He's a community leader in Gainesville. He leads some men's groups, and he's a coach, a running coach, and he's a marathoner as well. He ran the Olympic trials, and so super influential dude in my life. He would come over every day and make me smoothies, because I wasn't eating, I wasn't cooking, and so he'd come and make me these like 3,000 calorie smoothies with a ridiculous amount of protein and fat, and I would just suck that down, and that was my meal for the day. But he did that for me, and so to me he's super important. So I want to tell his story on how he is influencing others to get through hard things. So I think that's a great story to tell. But again, I don't know where this is going. I'd like for it to be a book, but at least a website. It's on Instagram right now. So this is very much my work in progress. This is Katrine, 2-time breast cancer survivor. She's an absolute beast. When I got sick and went to the track for my practice, my team practice, I told her, I was like, Katrine, I got into Chicago again, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do it because I start chemo next week. And she's like, oh, you'll do it. I'm like, are you crazy? I can barely walk right now. She's like, no, you'll do Chicago next year. I'm like, there's no way. She's like, trust me, Matt, you're going to do it. So she was a huge influence for me, so obviously I want to tell her story. But she, 2-time breast cancer survivor, like I said, and she runs this marathon in Jacksonville every year that benefits breast cancer survivors, and she wins it. She's in her 60s, and she's the first overall female winner every year. Absolutely incredible. And she has this, runners are weird, but she has a running streak, as they call it, and so she has run at least a mile every day for 10 years. 10 years, every day running a mile. That's through 2 bouts of cancer. Her husband was in the hospital for a month, and so she'd run up and down the halls getting her mile in. Absolutely incredible. So she won the race and then jumped in the ocean to celebrate. But if it influences me, I feel like it can influence others. So I want to tell these stories because I think it'd be great. I think it'd be great reference for people. But this project that whatever you want to call it, intentional movement is what I'm calling it. The intentional movement project started because I saw my bald head in a shadow and thought it made it look cool picture. I kept it simple, and I made it a mindless task of just doing it. And I think it can be something great. I don't know, like I said, I hope it goes somewhere. I don't know where it's going to go. But I think the point is, I think you can see starting from something simple can open your mind to something influential and impactful, at least hopefully. Yeah, so I thought that was a fun one to end on with Katrine, with her medals, jumping in the ocean. It was like the most non-Florida day that day because it was rainy, but she's like, I'm jumping in the ocean. Yeah, so that's me. That's my last year. So. Questions? No?
Any questions for Matt?
Any?
I have one.
Yeah.
At some point you switched to black and white. What was that decision? Or did you do this strictly for the problem?
Oh, no, I did it all black and white. You know, I don't know. If I think about it, one of the photographers I looked up to in college, he made a book. He was a newspaper photographer, and he would just go out and take these extra pictures while on assignment, and he turned those black and white and made a book out of it, and it was kind of like, you know, look, editor, the pictures I got for you weren't cool. The ones I took for myself, I made a book out of, and he made those all black and white. So that was kind of my motivation, just to keep them separate. And that first picture with the shadow with the bald head, I thought it looked better in black and white, so I just stuck with it. But no real meaning. Again, it was for me. I didn't care. I just wanted to do it. Yeah.
And what's your dog's name?
Oh, my dog's name is Rue. R-O-U-X. Yeah. She's old. She's like 13. She's like my old lady. Yeah.
I just had a question. So, are most of these pictures just shot on your phone as you're going by and just seeing them, or did you ever just bring your camera along?
Yeah, it was all cell phone. Because I got diagnosed in like Thanksgiving time, and so that first week of December is when the iPhones start coming out, and I really wanted the iPhone 14. So I remember like hobbling, barely going to the Verizon store just to get the new phone because I knew I wanted a good camera in my pocket. But the project, these are all camera. There was one picture from this series with my camera because I got work bought me an R5 and an R3, and so I started playing with it, and so I used it once for a picture. But yeah.
How do you carry your phone when you walk around?
Pocket.
Does it pull your shorts down? My shorts down.
No. Well, I guess if you can buy one of those arm sleeves, but because I wasn't like running, it wasn't like most of it was just in my jeans or whatever I was wearing that day. It wasn't. Yeah, and I have it set up to where I can just like swipe, camera, click. I make it as quick as possible. Yeah.
So one of the things that is really important to you is letting go of your ego. What is your biggest advice to like people who, like the perfectionists, you go out to shoot something and it might be just your passion project, might be just fun, but you really want to make everything perfect. What would you say to them?
How would I make...
Those people being me.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you. It takes time. And I think what helped me with that perfectionist and wanting to make a great image was that 2 or 3 minutes a day that I actually did work. I made sure to crop it and tone it how I wanted it, to where it was perfect for me. I don't know. That's a really tough question to answer because it's personal. What worked for me was like I stayed off social media a little bit. I try not to compare. But like I said, I don't know. I got so stripped of everything that I just didn't care. And I'm sorry that's not the greatest answer because it isn't. Like I don't want you to get stripped of everything. I want you to be able to let go of your ego. But look at other people's work and be like, that's awesome. And celebrate other people's work and don't compare it to yours. Because that's their work. That's their project. That's what they did. That's not what you did. So when you if you're doing a personal thing and you take a picture of it, be like, hell yeah, I took a great picture. And even if you don't, even if it's just peanuts on the ground, be like, hey, I got a drop in the bucket. But the big lesson is just keep showing up. If like just keep showing up. As a runner, I do that. I have to go to practice every day. And if I don't, even if I go to practice and don't do anything, I showed up. And so consistency. Because like I said, like you're gonna look back a year from now and be like, oh my gosh, look how much I grew. Whether it's learning how to cook or learning how to run or taking a project. If you just show up a little bit, if you just, let me learn how to roast a potato. And then you can add potatoes into your next thing when you learn how to make salmon or whatever. You know, it just grows. It just grows. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever at some point think, I like my phone camera better than my actual camera? That's kind of like,
I'm
for the most part.
I'm so glad you asked that because I actually took that part out when in the speech. Because I'm of the generation where a phone is a communication device and not a camera. So this helped me understand that, you know what, I can take stuff. And when I've done some traveling, and I don't travel with a wide angle anymore because my phone does that. I can shoot RAW, and I've blown up pictures from my phone. And so to me, my camera is now just another, or my phone, I'm sorry, is just another tool that I can use. And so it did, again, a little bit of ego. I had to be like, you know what, let me use this as a camera device, not just a texting, TikTok watching device. Yeah.
Did you share the pictures of the fact that you were doing the project with anyone as you were doing it? Did you draw encouragement or inspiration?
Yeah, my friend she took the picture of me on the bed when I was breathing that thing. She's the one that actually was like, share this, Matt. This is cool. Like, let people know that you're doing this. Because I was going to keep it private. I was going to just like battle this thing alone. And she's like, nope, you got to let people know you're doing this because this is going to help. So every day I would post like these two pictures, for example, I would post those on my Instagram story. And then every chemo cycle, I would post a handful of them just to be like, here's some more pictures I took during this 3 weeks of chemo. So yeah, every night, but I don't know, just for fun. So again, if you have any ideas of what I can do with these, I'm all ears because now they just live in this presentation and that's kind of it. But I think it'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Oh.
Have you, what work have you, I'm sorry because I can't think of it, but what work have you looked at that was an inspiration for maybe how you approach this or something that's in your back of your mind, that work you've seen that's in the same vein that you just really admire?
You know what, I'll tell you exactly. I don't think she's in here, but at last year's symposium, I went to Kristen Grace's presentation on the work she did with the museum, and she documented a bunch of different pieces of the museum and made a book out of it. And listening to her speak, and she started it like before COVID, and then COVID delayed it, and then she had to work. So it was like a 3-year process to make this book. And so it has nothing to do, it's a completely different subject matter, but just the process of going, hey, I have an idea, I'm gonna work on it for however long it takes, and then make a project or product out of it. That was my motivation, at least for the intentional movement, like for this work. I want it to be something, like I don't want to rush it. I don't want to rush it. I want there to be a polished project that can be a living website or a book or a calendar. I don't know, something. So yeah, this symposium last year was my what sparked this idea. Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you guys.